Lamar Jackson sent a strong message to John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens coaching staff and called out Marlon Humphrey after the Baltimore Ravens near collapse in Week 3 against the Dallas Cowboys. We talk about what was said, recap the game, and so much more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcoming to another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day, free and available all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, also in audio form. You can follow along and subscribe over there as well for 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. The Ravens, as the first victory Monday of the season, they pull off a 28-25 win over the Dallas Cowboys. They improve their record to 1-2. A much-needed win all across the board there. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Ravens established dominance over the first three quarters of that game, but it's that dreaded fourth quarter that has a lot of people talking about a win like a loss or not feeling especially good after the win. I feel both ways, right? Obviously, I'm really encouraged by what I saw in multiple aspects, but then some of the stuff that we saw in that fourth quarter, it's like, man, really, we're doing this again, and there were multiple ways that the Ravens could have put the game away, specifically on special teams. That just didn't happen, and then Dallas got their way back into the game. And after the game, Lamar Jackson sent a very clear and strong message to John Harbaugh. If you want to use the words call out indirectly, we can use those words as well. I kind of use the two interchangeably, send message, call out, whatever it may be. But he sent that strong message to the Ravens coaching staff and to John Harbaugh in particular, because look, when I talk about Ravens coaching staff, in this particular instance, I think he's talking to everybody. I think he's talking to everybody on the coaching staff, but John Harbaugh's the head coach, and it all falls on him here in that situation. But I'd say it was a big message to the coaching staff in general. And he also called out Marlon Humphrey on his post-game victory Instagram Live. So a lot to dive into. We'll talk about the messaging that Lamar sent to the coaches and teammates. And again, there's a lot that we can talk about and kind of break down and what Lamar ended up saying in those and how we can apply it to what the Ravens do moving forward. And then finally, we will get into a Ravens and Cowboys recap overall. So I think the big one here is Lamar Jackson. It's not a call out for the coaching staff in terms of like he specifically like, you know, by name or saying, oh yeah, well, with the coaches we need to do. No, it wasn't that type of call out. I don't want to put that out there and say Lamar Jackson did that. That's not true. At the very least, I would call this a very strong message to the coaching staff, if not a very professional and indirect, I would say, call out. But it was nothing, I'd say, malicious from Lamar. It's just, look, he was passionate and he wanted to say what he wanted to say to make sure that he got his point across about how he felt like that game should have gone and what the Ravens could have done. What the Ravens as a whole could have done. And obviously, he puts a lot of pressure on himself, right? He's not going out there and playing the blame game. That's not who Lamar Jackson is. Lamar obviously has a lot of high expectations for himself, but you could certainly tell that during the game, Lamar was not very happy with what some of those play calls were and the Ravens being conservative in the fourth quarter. So what Lamar Jackson ended up saying, it was on the post game with Fox. He said, I don't like how things were going towards the end. I felt like we should have put more points on the board. We should have put the gas on the pedal when we were up 28-6. And I guess Lamar, I mean, obviously he meant put the foot on the gas or foot on the pedal, whatever it may be. But, you know, you get the point here from Lamar. He wanted to keep going, you know, for the Ravens, and it should be this way. I agree with Lamar. It should be go, go, go for the Ravens in that situation. When they're up 28-6, when they have an opportunity to end the game effectively by scoring again, you know, you shouldn't get conservative. And whether, you know, he was talking directly to, oh, John, we need to do this, or Todd, we need to call this, or, even Zach Orr, right? Zach, we need to, on defense, this, that, and the other. Whatever it was, this coaching staff, the final say is with John Harbaugh, right? So that's where, there is some level of, we've seen this from the Ravens where they have gotten conservative, right? I think that with Todd Monken and this offense over the last year plus now, we've seen it where they'll get up big and they will get conservative. And that's been a big frustration point for a lot of people. And in this game in particular, the Cowboys got back into this game off of momentum alone. Baltimore, I believe, if I did the math correctly, and I believe I did, had just 62 yards in the fourth quarter, didn't even hold the ball for a ton. I mean, I guess they held it for a decent amount. I think it was right around 6-ish minutes here, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even 7 if I'm doing the math right there. But I think it's just how Dallas got back into the game. That's the key part here, and that's the big contention point of, you look at the defensive side of the ball, how Dallas got into it. The Ravens ended up missing the field goal on their first possession of the fourth quarter with Justin Tucker. If he hits that, obviously it's a lot different, right? It's a lot different in terms of what can happen. And look, Justin Tucker is a different conversation that we can certainly have throughout the course of this show. But then Dallas takes that, goes 6 plays, 64 yards in a minute, 48. And then they get the onside kick. Zay Flowers whiffs. Obviously, that's not an offensive or defensive thing. It's just Zay misses the ball, and it's a special teams issue. Well, they get the ball back, and Dallas, again, 7 plays, 56 yards in a minute, 46. So 2 drives under 2 minutes. Dallas goes at least 50 yards, and they're able to get the job done on both of those possessions. Then Baltimore goes 3 and out. And on that 3 and out, Derrick Henry for 6 yards, Derrick Henry for 1 yard, then an incomplete pass to Mark Andrews, really setting the tone of like, they were not very aggressive in trying to get that first down. It was, let's run the clock down in a very generic way, and then just try and hope that we can get a pass on third down. It's the same thing that happened on the last possession of the game, but it worked for them. That worked for them because Zay and Lamar ended up being able to connect. But in between, Dallas had an 11-play, 91-yard drive in 2 minutes and 33 seconds. And just, you felt like Baltimore had a couple of opportunities to take that momentum away. And they didn't get a ton of opportunities on offense. So when they did, they were not able to capitalize on them. And they just gave the ball right back to Dallas. That gives Dallas more momentum. And so Lamar here, again, the coaching staff, Todd Monken has to do a better job. Zach Orr has to do a better job, right? I thought that, again, we had seen so many good things from this offense through 3 quarters. There were so many good things that we saw. And I was really, really encouraged by that, right? This is still a win, right? The Ravens win the game. They improve their record. But there are still underlying things they have to get better at, and every team has to get better at it, right? It's not just the Ravens that have issues they need to get better at. But to dig themselves out of the 0-2 hole, now they're 1-2, right? So step accomplished, right? They can move forward with that. It's just better fourth quarter execution. So I'm happy the Ravens got the win, right? A win is a win, right? We definitely should say that, right? A win is a win, and I'm happy with the fact that they won the game. But we could just be having a very different conversation if the Ravens' fourth quarter woes didn't creep up on them here again. And it was almost a not so fun week again for this Ravens team. We would have had to have some other conversations, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about a win, but Lamar Jackson's message, I think, was pretty clear here. And again, it was not this, super drama-like call out or anything, or super drama-like, sending a message, right? He's saying the coaches by name or whatever, but you could tell what he was trying to say. It's that he wanted things to go differently in that fourth quarter in ways of just beating Dallas down, making sure they could continue doing that. And momentum is tough. Momentum is a real thing, but it'd be one thing if we hadn't seen this movie before, but we did. We have. And it's been a thing where the Ravens have lost games like that. Luckily, they were able to get the job done. Huge play from Lamar to Zay Flowers, right? That was awesome. That play, Diggs played way too far off coverage, but he made a stab at the ball, punch at the ball, and, Zay caught on. And then that play at the end where Lamar pulls it very late from Zay, he's able to get up the middle for the first down. That's that late game execution that you want. those are those creative plays that you want to throw the Dallas defense off. And they just didn't do enough of that when they got the ball. Not that they had it forever in the fourth quarter. Again, not that they had a ton of opportunities, but when they did have their opportunities, it just felt very generic overall. And so, yes, Derrick Henry was doing his thing. You want to be able to feed Derrick Henry, but the way that Lamar Jackson can just have his way with the defense, and Derrick Henry was doing it too. Both those guys were balling out in those first three quarters. You continue to ride those two guys, but do it in a way that makes it harder for the Dallas defense to stop what you were able to do for those first three quarters of the game, which was freeze the Dallas defense, keep them on their toes. They didn't throw the ball a lot, but they worked play action off of it a bit more in this game, which, well, I was encouraged about that. But even with the option plays, right? Make the defense guess, put them in binds. And so in the fourth quarter, when the defense is wearing down and, it's been a game and you've dominated, you could easily put that game away. We've seen the Ravens do it before. They're not incapable of doing it. And I think we saw a lot of encouraging things through those first three quarters, which I am very excited about moving forward. But can they put it all together in the fourth quarter? That's going to be the next step here for this Ravens team. And for Lamar Jackson, he clearly has a vision of what he wants this fourth quarter offense to look like, of what he wants that put him away style offense to look like. And so when it comes to John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, and the play calling, whatever it may be, there might be some level of hey, let's get everybody on the same page. But again, the coaching staff, it is John Harbaugh's coaching staff, right? So whoever Lamar Jackson was talking to indirectly there, I do kind of put the coaching staff thing on John Harbaugh. And so that's why I'm saying, hey, this was a message that Lamar sent to John Harbaugh. If you want to use the word call out, we can do that as well. Again, I'm using them interchangeably here, but was not an unprofessional thing, was not something where he was going on, a crazy rant or something like that. Lamar did it in a way that, hey, you know what? And he knows that he in certain situations, he didn't play perfectly in this game. I thought he played well, really well, but there are areas where everybody can improve, right? Where everybody can improve. And I think he'll be the first one to tell you that. But I thought Lamar had a really good game overall and did his job, right? He did his job. And I'm proud of him, Derrick Henry, the offensive line, and, the way that they were able to bounce back after a tough week 2 loss. They're able to finish the job this time, no matter how ugly it looked towards the end there. So we can all take solace in that, but they do have to clean it up. And hopefully that fourth quarter offense will be more on the same page and just the fourth quarter team in general moving forward. But coming up in the second part of the show, we'll be diving into Lamar Jackson more, but him calling out Marlon Humphrey on the post-game Instagram victory live that Marlon likes to do. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on the show. First, the show is brought to you by DoorDash. Football's finally back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. And there was a time before where I was going over to a friend's house to watch the game, show up, there's no food, no nothing. I just show up and there's nothing there. So we obviously called DoorDash. We got stuff on the way, food, drinks, all the game day essentials there. And the ultimate spread for Sundays has to include snacks, has to include desserts. You have to have it all over there. And DoorDash has you covered. And for me, if I'm comparing the Ravens to a food, if there was a game day essential I compare the Ravens to, I would probably go with Tabasco because the Ravens, they have a little kick to them. They can get spicy. But if you want to go with the Old Bay for the original Maryland flavor, would not be mad at that at all. I'm a big Old Bay guy personally. Use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 plus on your first order. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. We're back for our second segment. Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. After the Ravens beat the Dallas Cowboys 28-25, it's a Ravens Victory Monday. It feels so good to have a Victory Monday here on the show. Really appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe here in video form and audio form for 5 days a week of daily Ravens coverage, plus more. We do pregame episodes. We have game day episodes, bonus episodes. We go live after every single Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. So a lot of Ravens content here. If you have a friend or a family member who wants that daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them over our way. Our audio form continues to grow every single day, and our video form just hit 8,000 subscribers on YouTube. Next goal over there is 9,000. We talked about Lamar Jackson's strong message to the coaching staff in that first part of the show after the Ravens win against Dallas, but they're almost near collapse against Dallas. But Lamar also called out Marlon Humphrey. And this was more of a direct thing. This was more of a direct call out. And look, Lamar, we obviously know that based off of how he was talking post-game and, first of all, made a really big point, and we'll get to this in the more so the final part of the show, but called out in a good way Daniel Falele. All sorts of just like mentions from Lamar Jackson after the game, but Lamar made sure to give a point out there to Daniel Falele and make sure that he got his flowers, the offensive line as well. But for Marlon, we know Marlon likes to do his victory Instagram post-game lives and go on there and do his thing. And, it's a fun thing that he does. And, the vibes usually are there for those after wins. But this one, I think, was probably a little different just because of how it went. So Marlon was, talking to him about the game. Lamar seemed very disinterested in doing it. Marlon obviously wanted to get the, main guy of the Baltimore Ravens, the face of the Baltimore Ravens, and his opinion on the game. And, they were checking in with each other, how you doing? How you feeling? All that. And it seemed like, and I didn't even catch this, but, and again, I can't hear it 100% clearly, but it appears to be, and I'm saying it appears, right? Lamar appears to say, shouldn't even be doing live right now. Obviously, probably saying that, there are things they have to lock in, things they have to do better. Lamar's not a guy to like maliciously call out teammates, right? Like, he's not somebody to go out there and like make a scene about everything and do all that. That's not who Lamar is. But there was certainly some, I don't necessarily want to do this right now type energy from him. And, Lamar ended up calling out Marlon for dropping that INT, which CD did kind of rip out of his hands. Marlon had it. CD kind of ripped that ball away. But Lamar was like, you dropped that pick. And Marlon was like, it's a flag anyway. And Lamar got actually like serious about it. He's like, I don't care. I don't care. He said, remember when they made the practice post, Marlon picks off Lamar 4 times and you go in the game and you drop him, right? So essentially like that. And that was probably, Lamar's tone in this was not like playing around. And maybe it's just, he's not happy with the way the game went. Obviously, we can tell that from the comments. But, for Marlon, I guess probably just wasn't the time, right? Not the mood, I guess, where I didn't get to catch the whole victory Instagram live. I'll be honest with that. I was moving a million miles a minute yesterday. So I don't know, what the rest of the vibes were, but Lamar definitely did not want a lot of that to happen. It's kind of like, remember when Marcus Peters was on the team and he would always kind of like say, I don't want to be on camera, this, that, and the other. Lamar is, usually on this and he's usually fine with it, right? I'm not saying that there's a huge drama point between Lamar and Marlon, not at least that I know about, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I know anything about it, but definitely they're not happy with how the game went. Kind of not the time, kind of not the energy for Lamar, because Lamar just wants to get back. He wants to work. He wants to get better. He knows the Ravens can be better. And so all the jesting stuff and, all that after how the game ended up going, he's happy with the win, I'm sure, but he's not happy with how the win happened. That's the difference. And I know that there's been a lot of controversy with Marlon over the past couple of seasons, and him, first of all, his performance on the field last year. He played injured, though. I'm not going to give him too much flack for that. He was injured for a lot of the year, and he had a good game. I thought he played decently well in this one. Like he stepped up and made multiple different plays over the course of the game. Wasn't perfect, but made multiple different plays. But yeah, this one was a kind of a call out in terms of like, hey man, get in the game and go get those picks. If you're gonna pick me off 4 times in practice, go do it in the game. Don't do it against your teammates. Do it against the opponents when it can help us. That's kind of the message I got from Lamar. And again, Lamar wasn't really having it from anybody. Where again, gave credit to a lot of guys post game, but even during the game, if you kind of caught it on the broadcast, or even if you went to the game in Dallas, when he picked up that big first down to win the game, essentially, right on that play where he tucked the ball away from Zay or pulled the ball away from Zay, Ronnie Stanley was like all up in his face, like hype, celebrating, right? Ronnie was excited, and I don't blame him. Ronnie was excited, but he got way up in Lamar's face and was like constantly, I feel like, whether it was yelling or whatnot, and Lamar kind of was like, get out of my face. Like, get out of my face. Not in like a malicious, mean way, but it's like, come on, man, the game's not over yet. Like, don't do that. So there's a clip of Lamar picking up the first down, Ronnie being excited, Lamar being like, calm down, like, not yet. But it's just it's an interesting way because we were on such a different path through three quarters. We were on such a different path. And again, not the first time anybody's heard this, but the run game was just dominating. The defense, the Dallas couldn't get anything going. Like, there were so many good things in this game. But then a lot of it came crashing down in that fourth quarter. But the most important part, doesn't matter if you win by 30, win by 1, if it's a pretty win, an ugly win, a win is a win. Baltimore moves to 1-2. And coming up in the final part of the show, we are going to be diving into more of a general recap of the Ravens and Cowboys game. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 of bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So for the Ravens and Cowboys game, if you pick the Ravens to win, congratulations. And maybe even if you picked the over on Nelson Aguilar's receiving yards, you might be living large on FanDuel. So again, be sure to visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com. And the show is brought to you by DK Law Group. When you need a law firm, do you want the legal runaround, or would you rather have a no-nonsense approach? Well, you get the latter with DK Law Group. DK Law Group is a Maryland-based law firm who is redefining the legal process with their modern approach. DK Law Group specializes in real estate law, estate planning, business law, and family law. They're tech-savvy, they treat clients like family, and they focus on keeping your legal solutions simple. DK Law Group is a woman-led firm with Diana Khan at the helm. Diana has been called an unparalleled legal expert by some. One of the things you'll quickly notice with DK Law Group is their transparent pricing. They believe in clarity and cost and no one left in limbo. DK Law Group knows that speed is key. By leveraging technology, DK Law Group streamlines the process to serve you better and faster. Contact DK Law Group today at dklawmd.com. Locked On listeners and call today to schedule a free 30-minute consultation when you mention the tagline Empowering Legacies. We return our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Victory Monday. Appreciate everybody again for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have so much to dive into in this Ravens and Dallas game, and of course, we're going to do that, but I do want to give a shout out to the everydayers who tune in to the show each and every day. Really appreciate the consistent support. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. Hopefully you stay a while. If you're somewhere in the middle, welcome back. We're going to have a ton of Ravens content this week, breaking down, obviously, Baltimore's Week 3 win over Dallas, looking ahead to Buffalo in prime time in Week 4, and how the Ravens can move forward and hopefully continue their game momentum from Dallas, although I guess really don't have a ton after that fourth quarter. But you know what? The momentum isn't a win. That's kind of what we can take solace in right there. But let's talk a little bit about what actually happened in this Dallas game, get into a bit of a game recap. So we'll go through it quickly here. For this Ravens team, again, the Ravens win 28-25. Baltimore dominated on the ground, right? There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 274 total rushing yards for the Ravens in this game compared to just 51 for the Cowboys. They averaged 6.1 yards per rush as well. So they were getting really whatever they wanted for the most part. That fourth quarter, again, got a little dicey. But look, over the first three, the Cowboys' run defense is absolutely awful, but they did what they were supposed to do. And I thought it was really encouraging to see some of the option game working, Todd Monken calling those plays. Like, that's what the Ravens need to do. There were multiple times when this Dallas defense got frozen from what the Ravens were doing on the ground because there were just so many different potential outcomes that could happen. So we saw for Derrick Henry and Lamar on that touchdown that Derrick Henry had, there were multiple guys who were like, all right, am I going to go with Derrick Henry or not? On that first one and the second one. On Lamar's touchdown that he ran in, there were players that just wanted to go with Derrick Henry because he was the guy that was gashing him. And then Lamar just takes the ball and the defenders were frozen about which way to go. Like, we saw that. That was really encouraging to me because I think that's what Baltimore should do consistently with this offense and different variations of it throughout the entire game, throughout the full 4 quarters. So overall, Baltimore's ground game was great. Through the air, the Ravens only threw the ball 15 times. So it was 182 passing yards for the Ravens. Obviously, for Dak, he had 361 in that Dallas team did. Obviously, a lot of that coming in the fourth quarter. But the Ravens, they were hitting on those deep balls. I mean, and again, not all of them were like through the air deep balls, but hey, you look at some of these stats here in the box score. I mean, Nelson Aguilar, 1 reception, 56 yards. Charlie Kolar, 1 reception, 30 yards. Derrick Henry, 1 reception, 23 yards. So those are your averages. Rashod Bateman actually, was tied for the team lead in catches. He had a touchdown, so shout out to Rashod Bateman. Not a big Zay Flowers game, but he came up in the big moment when it was needed. So again, only 15 passes for Lamar, but this is kind of what we talk about for this team, right? Where Lamar only has to throw the ball 15 times, only has to throw the ball 13, 17, whatever you want to say, and the Ravens can still win. And he can do that, and the Ravens can still win by 30. And obviously they didn't today because of the fourth quarter, but they were on that track with them just dominating. They had 45 rushes as a team in this game. That's their identity. I thought they found something in this game. They found a lot of things in this game. If you can just take those good things for the Ravens and just squash the bad, this is a team that obviously with the high expectations they had entering the season, they can go far. But the fourth quarter stuff does have to get better. And what also has to get better is the penalties here. After an 11 penalty, 109-yard penalty-wise game for the Ravens in week 2, they followed that up with 13 for 105 in this one. Now, we can be honest about it, right? We can be honest about this. Another job by the referees where it just wasn't a good one. Odafe Owe, roughing the passer, pretty soft call there. Apparently, you can throw to your offensive lineman. Kyle Van Noy called out the refs. Multiple Ravens players actually called out the refs. We'll talk about that a little more tomorrow. But, you can throw the ball to an offensive lineman and avoid a safety, and that's illegal touching instead of intentional grounding where there really wasn't a receiver in the area. I mean, that's kind of crazy. It cost the Ravens 2 points right there. A couple other weak calls, but at the end of the day, not all 13 penalties were bad calls by the refs. They do have to clean that up. That's something that a lot of people have already acknowledged, right? I know that, the team understands that. Lamar is saying, quote, "We've got a finish, man." Lamar, as I mentioned, also made sure to make a point about Daniel Falele and said about Derrick Henry, quote, "He did what kings do. There's still more out there. There's still more in store." And speaking of that offensive line, hey, heck of a performance, a lot better than what we saw in weeks 1 and 2. Was it perfect? No. There's still plenty of room to improve, right? I'm not saying the offensive line is fixed. There's nothing to worry about. Not saying that. But Jess Rebeck notes here that Lamar Jackson was not sacked at all in this game, and the Cowboys had just 1 quarterback hit on Lamar. Plus, obviously, they opened up those rushing lanes for Derrick Henry. Henry said that he challenged this offensive line all week, and they responded to the challenge, and he was really proud of them for doing it. Called them out by their first names in a good way, obviously. The phrase call out has so many different connotations and different meanings. There are like 10 different ones, and you kind of have to specify which one. So for this one, Derrick Henry called him out in a good way. And said, mentioned everybody by name, and, it was a really cool thing that happened there. So I thought that overall, look, the Ravens showed a lot to me in terms of, we're starting to see how the Ravens want to utilize Derrick Henry. We're starting to see this offense get cooking a little bit. I think the passing offense, again, for players like Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely Andrews had 1 target, no receptions in this game. A very weird and slow start to the season for Mark. Isaiah Likely 1 catch for 4 yards on 1 target. Kind of weird to not have that tight end involvement. I mean, Charlie Kolar, again, he had 30 yards, so much more than what the other 2 had combined. So, hey, Charlie Kolar, tight end 1. No, I'm just kidding. Although Charlie Kolar's a heck of a player. I think he's improved a ton since coming out of school. But they're going to have to figure out ways to get Andrews involved. I think that's going to be a really big key. On defense, Kyle Hamilton, I thought, looked pretty back. Thought he looked good. Roquan had 11 tackles. Roquan just looks a step slow this year to start. I think he struggled, at least from Roquan standards, right? it feels like in coverage, we're kind of seeing that where he just looks a step slow. And I don't know if he's just out of shape right now, whatever it is, if that's just kind of like the way he wants to play now. I'm not sure what it is, but Roquan, it does seem it's a step slow for him. Other guys, though, Kyle Van Noy, 2 sacks, balled out again, 2 fractures in the orbital bone. He's doing his thing. Ardarius Washington, shout out to Ardarius Washington. Great game for Ardarius Washington. Got in CeeDee Lamb's head. Nate Wiggins had arguably the play of the game on defense, though, with that strip on CeeDee Lamb when he got caught. And that's kind of what we talked about with Nate Wiggins, right? The recovery. Nate Wiggins and his recovery has been really, really good, especially coming out of Clemson. And he showed that. Now, Nate had a tough day overall after that, was almost maybe a welcome to the NFL type moment, but, made a huge play on that. And then, as I mentioned, Marlon, I thought, had a decently good game overall. I thought he stepped up, made a couple of plays there. And then Justin Tucker misses the 46-yarder. Certainly some concern for me with Justin Tucker. Brandon Aubrey, it was kind of the opposite. Aubrey comes out there, hits from 65, hits from 50+. Is kind of what we felt here in Baltimore with Justin Tucker forever. But that feeling with, him, it's kind of like reversed, where when Aubrey came out, I was like, he's hitting anything. And when Tucker came out, I was like, I think it's going to go in, but I'm not necessarily sure. So many storylines to talk about here, right? Obviously, there's a clear message that a lot of these players want to send here, and the coaching staff wants to send as well. It's about everybody getting on the same page, though. So fourth quarter offense, Lamar's version, John Harbaugh's version, Tom Munkin's version, whatever it is, right? Play calling from Zach Warren on the defensive side of the ball. So many things to look at for this Ravens team. But at the end of the day, the Ravens come out with a win, and part of that is because of Mr. Derrick Henry himself. As we mentioned, 25 carries, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns for Derrick Henry in this game. Absolutely dominant performance. He was running over guys, stiff-arming guys, getting out into space. Cowboys wanted nothing to do with him in terms of tackling him. That was a vintage Derrick Henry performance, and did it feel so good that it was in a Baltimore Ravens uniform. So again, Baltimore wins 28-25 in week 3, improves their record to 1-2 with the week 4 tilt with Buffalo on the docket. That's all I have for you today here on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning in. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens content, so be sure to like and subscribe in video form and audio form. I'll see you back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.